This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, and you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
And with that, welcome to MM Plays, where we examine games, mechanics, and encounters through the examples of our actual play. Tonight, we discuss putting the story inside of your conflict in tabletop role-playing games. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
Chris.
Yeah, and I am Old Man Logan.
What tripped you up there, Jer, is that there's two spaces after that period. That's what threw you off. It's what threw me off when I looked at it, too.
The funny thing is, that's not how it was written. That's because I cut and pasted something in there, and I took the space at the end of the last one and stuck it in.
Normally, I clean that stuff up, but I had been shirking my duties the last couple of weeks.
All right, a little bit behind the scenes thing here.
Show you how the sausage is made.
Jerry and I learned to type in the same decade.
Yes.
So, and on likely the same kind of hardware, which is an actual typewriter.
Yes.
So for both of us, we were two spaces after the period. Years and years ago, I made a conscious effort to remove that from all of my writing. And it was excruciating for like 6 months to get it out of all my writing until it was finally gone. But Jerry still does it, and I can't not see it anymore. Every time I look at like a block of text, I'm like, there's double-spaced periods.
Why is there so much white space there?
Yeah, it's funny, and I tease him about it, but I grew up the same way. I learned to type on a IBM Selectric from a guy who smoked cigarettes in my classroom while he was, teaching us how to type like 30-something IBM Selectrics in, sick unison, clacking along.
Yes.
So anyway, I like to tease Jerry about it.
Hey.
As the editor, that is not the only quirk Jerry has, but we're not going to go into those.
I mean, I got my own set of quirks, but it ain't two spaces after a period. I got 99 grammatical problems, but two spaces after the period ain't one of them.
Oh, man, I just understood that I feel Bob's pain because while he edits text, I edit audio.
Oh, my God.
Yes, we have similar pains.
Anyways, let's do a real quick announcement, really. We only have one, which is please tell your friends about us.
Please.
If you like this show, tell somebody else.
And tell them what you like about it.
Don't tap a stranger. Don't do that.
That's my fault. I said that.
Yeah, he said that last episode. But yeah, send them a letter, send them a text. I mean, if you send them a letter, I want to know. You can send us a letter. That'd be interesting. I'd like to, handwritten letters are like the way of the dodo.
Snail mail, baby.
Trap them in a car on a long car ride and then make them listen to the episodes.
Do people of a certain age even know what a stamp is anymore?
I hilariously still have to write one check and send it in the mail once a month.
It's
hilarious.
Stupid.
Do you know that you can you can send checks just from your bank these days?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since you could do that. Like I'm saying that like it's like a revelation. It's not. It's just Phil saying that like I had to send a check via mail. Like I'm like, do you even have to anymore? Can't you just like have your bank send the check?
Or like the Book of Revelations.
I've been going to the bank to drop off like when I get an expense check or something like that I have to cash. Now it's to the point where because my wife is more technical savvy than I am, I just bring the check home. She takes a picture of it and deposits it in the bank like that. And I'm like, that saved that
Also
problem.
a thing now too.
Are you paying for stuff with your phone yet?
No.
I do.
I've got that very specifically turned off.
I set it up, I don't know, a month or two ago after Senda made fun of me for not setting it up, and I pay for everything now with my phone.
Just tap your phone?
Yeah, I almost never take an actual card out for anything.
Well, you guys know me and technology, so I have enough trouble with my phone in general, so...
Jerry's phone might start on fire if he tried that.
I'm actually in the space where I get worried sometimes about losing my phone, because if I ever lost my phone, I'd be in so much trouble.
I'm already there.
Yeah, but you have an iPhone. You lost your phone, you go online and wipe it out in 2 seconds.
I don't mean that. Like, I wouldn't have access to anything, because everything's two-factor authenticated through my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't get into anything without my phone. It's really funny. Anyways, let's move on to the workshop. Also, tell your friends to listen to us. Story inside of combat. Hit the button.
Workshop, combat. It's kind of boring. Maybe you should do something else besides combat during your combat.
Story.
Yes, that here. We'll talk about it in the workshop.
Don't suck.
Don't fight.
So a long time ago, I mean, it's been over a decade, I was running a 4th edition D&D campaign for my girlfriend then, now my wife, and a bunch of our college friends. We were all transitioning over from 3rd edition to this game, and honestly, 4th edition felt a lot more like a tabletop miniature skirmish game than other tabletop role-playing games at the time. But we had a great time with that campaign, and while the fights were the core experience of that game, it's the story that the people always talked about afterwards. The drama, the tragedy, those difficult choices that they all had to make, those conversations, the villains, so many failures, and so many triumphs. And I'm pretty sure that some people right now would say,
But 4th edition is a combat tabletop skirmish game, and all that stuff must have happened outside of the fights. So you GM'd around the game to make that happen.
but no, I just use those other type of gameplay beats to influence combat situations. Or, put them right inside of the fights, which is kind of what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about how I did that, along with the techniques, ideas, and thoughts the rest of us are going to provide about getting those role-playing moments out of your combat, or just those other story beat moments out of your combat. But first, we need a definition.
We do.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yeah, let's break down a few things. Starting with combat, phase of play, right? This is when you engage your combat system or the combat mini game for your game. Depending on the game you have, this could be just a move in, say, something like Dungeon World, or it could be like 20, 30 pages of a rule book like 4th edition D&D, right? It'll depend on the game you're playing. It uses the core mechanics, you hope, Burning Wheel aside. It uses the core mechanics to create a game within a game where the stakes include physical harm, death, and a variety of other potential consequences depending on the game you're playing. Then there's role-playing. I think if you're listening to this, you probably have some grasp about what we're talking about when we say role-playing.
You'd say that, but every time I say, can you define role-playing to me? A lot of people have a hard time with it.
Sure. Well, it's the act of performing the part of a person or character that is not yourself, in part or in whole. So it is embodying your character, which is the interface to the game.
Yes.
That could be a whole topic unto itself.
Yes, it could be.
But we're talking about things like character interactions, impactful choices that alter the game situation on both small and large scales, descriptions of actions that highlight the character and setting and things like that. Skill checks are when you engage other mechanics of the game for non-combat applications. So all the things that we defined for combat, not those. Not to be confused with, there are sometimes combat applications of skills, like bluff for a feint or something like that. We're talking about something completely different, like maybe you're making an athletics check or a strength check or something to move something in the middle of a combat, right? So there are times where we make skill checks or other non-combat mechanics in the middle of a combat.
Okay, let's talk about tips, techniques, and ideas and thoughts. Now, I have a thesis. Combat is just a type of story beat. Now, if you have the same combat story beat repeatedly, it just becomes stagnant, like any other story beat. That means it benefits us to have other story beats within the combat minigame or combat subsystem to keep the gameplay from becoming stagnant.
I think that there's just a little corollary to that. If the combat is relatively short, it's probably not a big deal.
Probably not.
If the combat is going to be longer, then yes, then this problem starts to arise. And this is basically, I think, we used to use the phrase spamming the button, right? Like if combat, turn, right? Like if you just have like a quick, like, oh, random encounter, boom, 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 three hits and they're gone kind of thing. Like that's just a little thing that shakes things up. Maybe you don't have to change up beats. But if you're 12th level fighters in a Pathfinder game and you're going to have anything that looks like an average combat, you probably now want to start packing some other stuff in there.
It's the same thing with any other beat too. Like I don't want just drama.
Sure. Exactly.
Because too much drama is just like, well, then is it really drama?
Mm-hmm.
It's the classic, you can't have good without bad, because you can't appreciate the good if there's no bad to counterpoint it.
And this, I think, goes back to Robin's Law's Hamlet hit points.
And this is Hamlet hit points all over the place.
Beat structure that you need changes in beats. Otherwise, you start to become tone deaf to the beat. It's why in horror, there has to be a break. Like they can't constantly be running.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just start to tune it out. You stop caring as much. For instance, Picard, season 3, in the first half of that, they lose so many times. The beat is down so many times in a row that I got annoyed. So
the example that I think, and the one that Chris pointed out to me the first time, is Avengers Infinity War. The first half hour of that movie is a series of beats where you have combat, humor, the heroes lose, and then you have a downbeat. The heroes get together, they talk, they get attacked again, they fight for a while, they lose, romantic interlude, followed by a combat, the heroes lose, Cap shows up, the heroes win, move on. And that all goes up, down, plus character growth all at the same time.
Yes.
In all seriousness, read Hamlet's hit points, or Robin saves you the hassle. just get the PDF. There's a chapter called If You're Not Going to Read This Whole Book, where Robin sums up the whole thing in like 6 pages. Read that.
This is the primary thesis text for any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, good stuff. So, what are the types of beats that we can put into our combat minigames?
There's a bunch of them in here. I mean, you can do things like romance. You can have, in the middle of a fight, have it slow down a little bit so that 2 characters who have some sort of romantic tension can have some interaction back and forth in the middle of the fight. You can have all sorts of drama, monologuing, revealing of information in the middle of the fight. You can have non-combat things, skill checks going on, like slicing in Star Wars, which is hacking in other games. People trying to disarm a bomb or trying to accumulate a number of successes to stop the summoning from occurring. There's all sorts of things that can happen as part of the combat, either instead of the combat or alongside the combat. And then you get into things like in Fate and Cortex, where you can have characters that are creating advantages or assets or situations or distinctions that will change the feel of the game itself. All that can just be put in by the players, let alone what the GM wants to add in. Anybody else?
So you can have those like little interlude beats, which is fine. Like players can do those things. They can have those little conversations, those little moments. You can also, and I think this is very much a Chris thing, you can also put into the combat other things that have to get done.
But the skill checks, the skill challenges.
Yeah. But there's like 2 ways that these can come in, right? Players can push stuff into the combat to break up the monotony, or the GM can set stuff up and be like, okay, there's a whole bunch of angry cultists. The head cultist is casting a ritual that if they complete, they're going to, open this portal. And so there's going to be a combat, but also people can take actions such as like the wizard can cast a counterspell to keep the portal from, proceeding, that kind of thing. And you can lay that all out at the table at the beginning of combat and put that out there. So I think it's not that Jerry named all the things. I think my addition to it is there are player initiated and there are GM initiated ways to do that.
That makes sense.
The last one I think I'm just going to add in is it's still a combat beat, but it changes the combat beat. Chris has talked about this a number of times. In most of his big boss fights or climactic fights, he has the situation where the equivalent of Bloodied, where something happens in the game, the villain loses a certain number of hit points or something, and suddenly the situation changes. The villain gets a different set of abilities, something that is down comes back up again, something changes, that timer clock or something triggered by the actions of the combat that change the combat mid-combat.
That's interesting because it's another combat beat inside of the combat that changes the combat. It's a good beat to have, I think.
I got to ask, can you do that sentence again, but get combat in there one more time?
I think I can. It is a combat beat inside of the combat where the combat changes so that the combat becomes more interesting. Combat. Great video game combat.
Combat.
It's like that Buffalo sentence. Like you can say Buffalo 15 times. It's a real sentence.
I mean, if I was going to slim it down, I suppose I'd say having that combat beat change makes everything about that situation more interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's the equivalent of like a dramatic twist in the middle of combat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's just a combat twist in the middle of combat.
Yes.
So I could say combat again.
There you go.
Yes.
By the way, if you're playing the drinking game, every time we say combat, don't drink because you'll die.
Don't drink. The opening will kill you alone.
And take a water break. So, what is the difference between effective beat placement and poor beat placement?
Well, I think effective beat placement keeps the game moving and can either heighten tension or bring an emotional or dramatic release. Tension and release. Tension and release. It's like fishing.
Meanwhile, poor beat placement is going to slow the game to a crawl, or it could create a lot of frustration and boredom. Tension builds up and nothing's ever released.
I got a question. Do you think it really slows the game to a crawl, or does it just create the feeling that the game is slowing to a crawl? Anybody?
Is there a difference?
No, there's really not. Because emotionally, that's the point.
Important, yes.
Yeah.
The perception of the game slowing to a crawl, whether it's real or just perceived, is enough for a lot of people to go, ugh.
Because good beat placement can still slow the game down without making it feel like it's a crawl.
I think the important part is good beat placement slows the game down in a place where it's good to slow the game down.
Yep.
Maybe the combat's progressing too quickly and you want to thread it out a little without padding the opposition with extra hit points and stuff like that. You can change beats and go to a dramatic beat, which all dramatic interactions tend to slow our play down because we're talking and things like that, instead of just rolling and engaging mechanics. So if you do it right, you can kind of stretch out your game without mechanically tinkering with it.
Phil, there's probably a really good example that we could talk about that comes right from our Children of the Shroud game.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the fight with the Lancaster
Legends
win,
by the way. We won't call it the Land of Evil anymore because Jerry asked us not to.
I got the joke in once. We don't have to beat it to death, but I got it in. There's a couple things going on with that combat. First of all, there are 3 of you in the game. And if I just show up with 1 wizard, the chance that 3 of you can just take turns and just kick the crap out of him, it's pretty good, right? So then I either have to show up with 3 wizards, which is fine, but also not always the most interesting thing to do. So I did 1 magical character, and then thanks to Cortex, I was like, oh, I'll just turn all the rest of them into 1 mechanical object, a mob. And then I was like, well, that's 2. That's cool. What do I do with the 3rd one of you? And that's when I was like, oh, it'll be interesting if the ritual needs to get done. Like if the ritual gets done, they can't steal the magic. So now the ritual has this importance. So somebody should help the ritual keep going. Now there's 3 problems. There are 3 players. And I like that a bit more, like just from a GMing standpoint. And then purposely, I wanted to make sure you guys were clear. And I think I said it as we began that you could switch places. Because I also didn't want it to be like, well, Chris is dueling him and all Jerry's doing is making skill checks to help Ike, which is not always the most exciting part of it, like just helping Ike complete the ritual. So I wanted to make sure that at any point during the turn, you guys could all change places.
And I actually was thinking about that before you even mentioned it, because it is, of course, a trope where you get into a fight and, you know, A and B are fighting, C and D are fighting, and E and F are fighting. And they're like, this isn't going so well. Well, let's switch it up. Because people have different strengths or whatever. It's like, oh, I'd be more effective against that guy. And even though he wanted to duel you, I'm going to step in and I'm going to cause trouble for him. And then you switcheroo and everything changes. And that in itself is a nice beat.
There are also 3 different mechanical structures.
Yep.
So one of them is engaging the duel, which is a more lengthy and complicated, it's a more intricate mechanic in the game. Then fighting a mob, that's interesting, but it's a little more streamlined. And then the most streamlined is the skill check.
Except the skill check was the one that had the most interesting potential results because of the things we didn't know that were on the ritual's complications or the timer.
Yeah. Some thought went into how to lay out that scene so that in hopes that it would be engaging, tense, and not one tone.
I liked all of that stuff, and I thought it's great because that's the thing you're talking about. Those are GM facing.
Yeah.
And the other one is eventually GM facing too, but it's a cut-in when Silas went to go and deal with the ritual and had a 1 in there or a failure, and then he saw Mesame. That's a brilliant beat change right there. Right in the middle of like, sure, we are expecting these things, something unexpected just happened.
And there's your drama beat. Boom.
And it didn't have to be a drama beat.
No, but
technique-wise, it could have been anything, but it was something that we didn't expect.
Sure, I could have just slapped stress on you.
You could have.
And I would like to say that there was some plan for that. I mean, there wasn't.
I know there wasn't.
And it was just, it's that gut feel of just knowing, that this beat would be really interesting. Plus, you did a really good job when you were narrating everything. You led me through your description. So when that 1 came up and I was like, well, based on what he said was happening, what can I do with that 1? It kind of led me right to...
I actually don't think it was a 1. I think I failed that roll.
Well, either way.
Yeah, either way.
Not that I'm going to remember.
Yeah.
But for me, you did a really good job of leading me with the narrative so that my next move, like I knew what move to make based off of yours because you had set me up so well.
These are the strengths of role-playing games because you can do these things.
Yes.
You didn't just set a thing up and play out the thing that was set up. You made some calls to create a story that was interesting to everybody at the table, including yourself.
One of the advantages also that players have to remember in GMs is that it's okay to temporarily pause the turn timing. Because the thing with Silas took longer than what a normal quote-unquote combat turn would happen. And so the rest of us were just like, during that point, we're just dueling back and forth, exchanging blows, and nobody's hitting anything, and just let that story go on because we don't have to worry about, well, what happens in this 6-second arc? What happens in this 6-second arc? And sometimes when you have that change in beat structure, it's okay to suspend the time limit if your game has one for combat. And just say, okay, for the next 30 seconds, you guys are just exchanging blows. And if you want to describe what happens, but in the meantime, this is what's happening. So that the player who is doing the non-combat beat has time to role play that out and talk about it and get it done, buy into it. And we did.
Yeah, I mean, you see this all the time in movies.
I actually have to disagree with everything that Jerry just said from point of view. Like,
Yeah.
look, in my head, that sequence that just occurred, like time stopped for me in Mesame. Like nothing was happening. I was in like a little pocket dimension, so time actually flowed anyway. But Cortex doesn't have 6-second time limits anyway.
That's what I mean.
It is camera moving from place to place. Now, if we're talking about a game like D&D, or something that actually has a 6-second turn limit, like it kind of states explicitly, like these combat rounds take about 6 seconds. You can suspend play for a moment to have those conversations, but I actually hate doing that. Me personally, I can't stand doing that. I try really hard to keep everything within those 6-second beats if I can pull it off. And like when people start talking or get like talking to each other or whatnot inside of a combat, I usually just think of that as conversations that are happening while the fight is going on, even within those 6-second time limits.
You can do both.
I was going to tack on to what you were saying is that, especially with Cortex, I am trying to emulate a show. So for me to have this like kind of slow down time moment with Mesame, it just works because that's leaning into some tropes into the game. But Chris is right. There's nothing where anything in Cortex is heavily structured like that.
Even like a turn that somebody takes is like the camera's on you for that moment.
Yeah, I was envisioning that while it was happening as the camera being inside the structure, looking at Silas with the fight outside in the background, and the fight outside in the background is like this slow motion thing that's going on while he's having his moment.
So like nothing wrong either way, but Cortex doesn't have the 6-second structure. Games that do have the 6-second structure, you can do it any way you want. Like if you want to slow down that time, extend it out, be like 30 seconds have passed really, or like a minute has passed, and then we move the camera over here. Because when I have big battle sequences in my D&D games, they have to. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. But like if you have moment-to-moment combat with like 4 people on a mat versus like 12 to 8 people on a mat, then I don't know. It's up to you how you want to handle that. But for me personally, like I have a hard time when it feels like it's not moving in time, because that's how those games tend to play for me.
That's fair.
In my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it destroys the story in my head if I don't try to keep it that way. That's why I don't play a lot of D&D. I run a lot of D&D because people do stuff like that and it drives me crazy.
The important thing is keep those beats bumping.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually more of a person who likes like not seriously timed turns. Just for this reason. I like to mess around with camera, story, whatever. And so it's just better if the game actually also does that with me. Because I will actually try to play a game as designed. Like when we play Cyberpunk, that game's got a more rigid turn structure. I will have to be more rigid about turn structure. When we play Cortex, like when we play Ox, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's all happening roughly the same time as you guys are running around the ship. Like, yeah, no problem. We're here. We're there. You know,
because it's camera cuts.
Yeah, it's the Roy Kent method of RPGs series there. Every fucking where.
It's funny.
Do you have an example of another time from another game where this kind of technique was used? And if so, how did you use it and how was it effective?
Way back in the old timey days, back in the early 90s, I was running Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, 1st edition. And we had a big fight with a big bad evil guy. And Warhammer doesn't have a lot of variance in the combat. But because of the way the system was set up, we had one player who was trying to resist chaos. We had a situation where we had players doing just about everything. We had combined combat. We had some people making resistance rolls. We had one person kind of monologuing as they were struggling with their demons. And we had 2 players that were just doing non-combat actions to try to undo a chaos sigil at the same time. They never got involved in a single fight roll. This all happened at the same time. It was one of the first times I tried to do it in a system that I wasn't as familiar with, but it was something that worked very well. And the fact that we simply said, okay, on this action, whatever you want to do takes your action roll. And a lot of games, even at that point, still hadn't incorporated that kind of idea. But it was neat to see, and because Warhammer has both a combat system and a skill system, it was easy to incorporate both at the same time and let people try different things and simply take all the different various and often strange abilities you get in Warhammer to try different things and see what they could do. What can I add for my resistance roll? What kind of influence can I have on somebody? How can I use my fellowship skill to help my friend resist chaos and so on? It became more than just we keep attacking the greater demon with our swords. Well, that's commonplace now. It's a lot of fun to have, and it was interesting to see the players all immediately dive into it. Today, that's fairly common. Most games have the ability to do that, or a lot of them do. But it was something in the past that worked, and it was something we just implemented, and it made what could have just been 6 characters attacking a greater demon into a whole bunch of things happening at once. It was a lot of fun.
I do this all the time in pretty much every game I run, so it's like hard to think about. Like when our D&D game that we just had with Gozu, the Gakis Thule, the 8-year-old Gakis Thule kid, like he would talk to you guys constantly. There were beats where you had to solve puzzles when you grabbed onto those items that were floating around the arena, and like traversing the arena in itself was not always super easy. You had to make some choices about that. Plus, there were monsters to fight who some of them you knew, which was every single one of those things is a different beat that can be utilized. So I didn't set it up to be beats. I set it up to give myself options for beats. So that is another way to go about that. Who else has got one? Anybody else got one?
Ever since I learned it from you, like, I don't know, 8-something years ago, I pretty much try to work this in when I prep all the time. I'm less effective at it when I am ad-libbing a game and do okay with it. But if I am prepping a game, usually whatever the big challenge, big fight's going to be for the game, I put thought into what else can be going on in the scene. I very rarely will have just a big fight be a big fight. Like, it's okay, but it's, to me, there's almost something more interesting if I can put something else into it as we go.
Bob, I got to ask you, man, as a player in a game, have you ever done this, and how did it go over? Have you ever tried to like slide in these extra beats inside of combats and whatnot, or different like action situations?
I'm sure I've done it within the last year or two, because my game has changed so much over the last 10 years, especially within the last couple. I've been doing a lot more proactive type things as a player to try and help with story, and without even thinking of them as beats, beat changes. So I know I've done it. I'm trying hard to think of an example of one other than what Phil just said. I was thinking already of changing up who we were fighting against in that Children of the Shroud fight before he said that it was definitely a thing.
I got one. From our Children of the Shroud game, I actually changed the beat from being combat to casting magic when I decided to summon those swords. It actually threw you off a little bit, because you're like, you should be fighting these people. I'm like, I want to summon a thing. I actually think Cortex and Fate do a good job of creating a space for that with their rules, because of the creation of aspects and the creation of traits on the table. You don't have to fight, but you can craft something, essentially do something that is not, I hit you with my weapon.
Yeah, there's definitely way more space to do that as a player in those games.
And even that is a beat change from the, I'm going to smack you and do damage to you. I guess D&D does this too with its buff spells, like anything that's like concentration. Like, I'm going to cast Bless. That's not the same as I'm going to hurt you.
That's true.
The Genesis system with those dice, because all those dice can generate advantages and disadvantages on the table that can then be defined by the player. A player can just say, I'm doing X, Y, and Z in a combat round that has nothing to do with combat. And then if they roll enough either successes, they can do the thing they want to try to do. And if they just roll some advantages, they can then define what those advantages are and how they can be used by the players at the table. So they can constantly be doing things in the room, whether it's moving furniture around, setting up terrain, hacking a computer, laying down on the floor so somebody trips over them, whatever. They can do, but the dice mechanic allow you to do that. And if you've got creative players, they can then say, okay, I've got these things. And because the dice will generate a certain number of advantages, it tells the GM and the players what the results are, the equivalent of basically getting a D12 or a D8 kind of thing. It gives you some sort of modification you can use going forward.
Now, I'm sort of hedging when we're talking about this as a player, because I mean, a lot of these things that we're talking about, and I know I did it too, are things that you actually can explicitly do inside of a combat situation, and are not like necessarily other beats outside of the combat mini game. Engaging with a skill check or a skill challenge of some sort is actually engaging with a beat outside of the combat mini game.
I have a question for you about one that happened in a game you ran a couple years ago.
Sure.
Your D&D game. Your wife, Jen, we were on a rope trying to climb down. We were being attacked by monsters from above. We were trying to get to the ground to stop our disadvantage of being on a rope. We could only move so fast. And your wife, Jen, used her movement action. Instead of fighting the monsters, she grabbed the two of us and then just dropped off the rope so that she took the damage and we could get to the ground in time without...
I don't even remember this game.
Yes, that's the one where she threw me in the midair and I was firing two pistol crossbows at the same time.
It must have been an Eberron game.
It was Eberron. It was your Eberron game. But instead of trying to fight, she was our fighter. Instead of fighting in the combat, she instead realized that everybody would be safer on the ground, so she used her action to pull us. We'd climbed as far as we could go. We'd gone as far as we could go because of the action, the initiative of the turn. She just grabbed the two people closest to her and flung herself off the rope. So she took the damage as we hit the ground, and we could still move further without taking a move action, which is just using the rules. But it was neat because all of a sudden it changed the entire scope of where the next turn was going to be.
Yeah.
And also created an entire change of the dynamic of how that fight was going, because now three of us were on the ground.
It's actually a really good example of a player using the actual combat rules or the action economy inside of a fight to change the situation in the middle of the fight. Yeah, that's a pretty good example.
Plus, I got to do the cool thing of flying through midair, firing 2 pistol crossbows.
There's
which was
that
just
too.
cool.
To bridge this in our previous episode on the fly rules, if a system does not have a good set of mechanics for other things I can do in combat, I actually get frustrated. Like, if my only options are movement and some sort of attack action, not where I can't set up somebody, those kinds of things, like, I will start to get, not that I'll get frustrated, it becomes super limiting. And so sometimes it's helpful when a GM will on the fly make rulings like, can I go pull the curtains down, kind of thing.
And they should say yes, because that creates that creates a play culture at the table.
Yes.
Yeah, it encourages, like, let's have some out-of-the-box thinking here, but also let's make it mechanically meaningful.
You know, we probably should have talked about that. It didn't even occur to me. The idea of creating rules on the fly and making these rule calls and whatnot actually is a thing that creates a play culture at your table.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do that in a specific way, it will encourage other people to play that way.
Yeah. Now, if your game has it baked in, like Fate or Cortex, it's really easy because mechanically, if you say that to me, I'm like, cool, are you creating a trade at the table? Right? Are you creating an asset for somebody to use? Yes. Okay, good. We have mechanics for that. But if we're playing a game that doesn't have that, and I'm like, hey, can we do that? And you're like, yeah, that'll give Bob +1 forward on his next roll, then it's cool because I don't always necessarily want to hit something, right? So sometimes I'm seeing the scene and I'm trying to do the cool things that go with it, or I don't want to steal Bob's kill, right? So what can I do to give Bob a little extra advantage without running in and hitting it and possibly wasting it? Because, Bob should get to kill stuff too, that kind of thing. So yeah, I like when GMs are comfortable making those kinds of line calls about, sure, that's not in the rules, but cool, let's go with that.
This is where I think that D&D has one thing that I don't know if it's written in the rules this way, but literally you can just create advantage for another player if you really wanted to. I mean, the GM needed to wing a rule on the fly.
Yeah, it's just the help action. The help action exists. It gives somebody advantage.
Yeah. You just have to figure out what you're doing, but if you narrate it, hey, I do this, and that gives somebody else advantage, which in D&D means you roll twice and pick the highest roll.
Yeah, which is not always the most advantageous thing to do because, do you just do your own thing and roll a D20, or do you just give somebody else 2 D20 rolls? I mean, it depends on the situation, right?
Yeah, what they're doing. But it's still a good rule on the fly.
Yeah, and I think advantage is a nice shorthand way to handle it. You can on the fly say other things like, oh, well, if you make that strength check, you pull the curtains down, and now that creature can't see.
Yes, I was going to say that, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, like that's maybe more interesting.
Now they're blinded and they're tangled up.
Yep.
Yes, and that's different than just having advantage.
Of course.
And on top of it, if that creature needed to see, say, to cast a spell or something,
you've totally destroyed that.
Yeah, you've just really you've really shook up the game with what could potentially just be a strength check.
Yep, and now they have to make a check to potentially get out of that, or they have to take their turn to get out of it, which basically they've wasted their turn.
Yeah.
And action economy in that particular game is very important.
Yep. Yeah. I love
Most
that
games,
stuff.
really.
Yeah.
You will then get into a lot of making rules on the fly at that moment, which is cool. Embrace it. Just
you should that's
yes and.
These are the strengths of I don't know. Yes and is a good technique. Yeah, I think I like yes. Let's make it work better.
I also like if we're going to give that much mechanical advantage to what happens, then on the other side of it, there's going to be a mechanical cost, as in you have to make a check for this.
Or just remember everybody else can do that stuff to you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for the goose, good for the gander.
There's got to be some balance to that thing.
It's like, you want crits where you can have your arm cut off? Sure.
Yeah.
Or where you can cut off the bad guy's arms and things like that? Sure. You realize this comes back the other way. Then that's when everybody's like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, crits are their own special little thing.
I know. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole lot of special little things that we could have talked about. You want to talk about advantage and disadvantage in Dungeons & Dragons? We can talk about how there's a huge amount of people that freaking hate that rule because how it unbalances things. But we don't have to because that's what this episode is about.
Yes.
Anyways, what are some techniques or tips you would explicitly suggest based on all of the things that we've just talked about?
Oh, I think one of the key ones is if you're going to, especially from a player side, if you want to push in and change beats, really have a good grasp of beat structure.
And just rules, potentially.
Yeah, just jumping in to have a dramatic scene in the middle of somebody else's combat turn or whatever could be throwing things off. Like, oh, Bob just got hit for 0 hit points and be like, and I'm talking to the blood sister or whatever. And it's like, maybe this isn't the right time. I don't know. It could be exactly the right time to create a cliffhanger, or it could completely disrupt the flow of what's happening based on tension. So have a good feel for, when to make those kind of pushes inward, or have a signal to ask if you can push in.
A good version of that from our game is when Bob was quipping with whatever his name was, baseball bat boy.
Yes.
Oh, the legend in his own mind?
Yes, the legend in his own mind. I am legend was his. Yeah,
yes, I am legend.
I am legend. I thought that was really good. I thought it told a lot about both characters. Like, one, you hate bullies. He was an arrogant.
Oh, there was nothing likable about that character.
I think that's quality inserting role-playing and beat structure to the combat, because that's the stuff that we see in film all the time, right? Like, it actually helps with the flow of the fight when you see it in a lot of action movies, or I mean, not that I want to step on this landmine, but wuxia.
I mean, we have
Yeah.
no place to step on that landmine.
Wuxia tells a story with its combat.
Sure.
I mean, this is years. We have like plenty of years behind us now, and we understand a lot better from our mistakes.
We were just wrong.
We were just wrong.
And we took it down from the website, and it's only for our patrons,
That's
so we're
right.
safe.
So, like, telling stories with fights is important. Role-playing games are mostly a verbal medium.
Yes.
I would say, as a GM, be open to the players making these kinds of decisions during combat to help change the beat structure. Don't be hard and rigid with your rules and everything like that. If something looks like you can be flexible enough to do it, and it's going to help with the beat structure and that kind of thing, be open to letting that happen. And as a player, don't be afraid to try or to ask if you can try. Like Phil said, if you kind of have to understand how some of the stuff works and the mechanics and everything, but don't be sitting back and never take that opportunity. If something comes to mind, you're like, oh, this would be really cool. I think it would work. Take a shot.
Mm-hmm. And as a GM, at the same time, when the player decides to do something you're not expecting, feel free to do what both of these GMs do all the time, which is ask, what are you trying to do here? And don't ask it sarcastically, like, what are you trying to do so I can help you with whatever mechanical or non-mechanical thing you need to attempt that, whether it succeeds or not.
I agree.
I need to know what to engage here.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I need to know, what are you attempting to do, so we know which pathway, or there is no pathway.
Mm-hmm.
Can we take a second to talk about actual beat structure for a second?
Yeah.
Because we keep throwing this word around, but I realize that we might be doing ourselves a disservice and the listeners a disservice. So, like, the beat is fractal. Your beat structure can be how your scenes are beated out, and then your beat structure can be how the individual moments of a scene are going. So, like, if we confuse anybody, recontextualize everything we were just talking about from that point of view. Because you can have a combat or a conflict scene, like we're talking about from our Children of the Shroud game, then we're talking about the beats that exist inside of that. So, for instance, when Bob quips with the bully, that's a role-playing drama beat almost. Then there's the part where there's the description and the dice roll that goes along with the fighting part. And then there's the cut to, like, inside doing the ritual, which is a different beat, which there you can actually hear it where Ike is like, gotta keep the ritual going. As then you were trying to then roll the dice to once again do that. Like, these things are purposefully done in the game to help tell the story and not keep it boring or just keep it mechanical and actually be a story. That's the thing that I want to say, I think, about the idea of what a beat is inside of a scene and what a beat is from just, like, scene beats of scenes.
Yeah, and they have similar properties. You can have a combat scene that is broken up very nicely. You can have many scenes in a dungeon crawl where you have a combat and then an exploration, interaction, then a combat, a trap, that kind of thing, that also breaks those things up. It's kind of the neat thing about that structure is that it applies to many levels, which is also why sometimes when we're watching a movie, we like a particular scene, but we don't actually like the progression of scenes.
Yeah.
Because the beat structure inside the scene might have been done really well, but when we zoom back out to the overall, we're like, oh, like, yes, that combat scene was good, but it's also the 5th combat scene I've seen in a row.
Yes.
Might be too much.
Yeah. I think that was worth talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, we're going to talk about another show because we like talking about other shows on the network. We've got the Gnomecast, which is one of our favorite shows because the Gnomecast is fun.
It is fun.
Several gnomes from Gnome Stew get together to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and to avoid being thrown in the stew pot. Because, nobody wants to be thrown in the stew pot.
Actually, you can hear Senda and Jared and Ange talking about world building. That's one of the more recent episodes of the Gnomecast.
Cool.
Good episode. Oh, let's do some Patreon shout-outs. Why don't you hit us up with those then, there,
Hey,
Mr. Bob?
Look at this. It's time for the Royal Court. Big shout-out thank yous to Ty Prunty, who is Lord Timemonger. Lars Henrik Ebjan, the Lord Out of Time. Jim, the Royal Merchant Emeritus. Chromatic Chameleon, the Queen's Spy Mistress. Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth. Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies. Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice. Evil John Carney, the Court Necromancer. Craig, the Lord of One Name.
I don't think John is actually evil.
He's not actually proven to be evil.
Yeah, I think he's actually a pretty nice guy. I know that we call him Evil John Carney. I'm just
one of his handles is Evil John.
He's such a nice guy.
He is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. Seriously.
It probably doesn't roll off as nicely as like super good John Carney.
I know, right?
Like evil
John Carney sounds way cooler.
Yeah.
In any event, Tiberius Starcrash Smith, the Baron of Britannia. Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard. And J.T. Evans, the Queen's Librarian. And a big thank you to everyone for listening to this.
If you like this show, you can hear more just like it at MrVictorMark.com. If that's not enough, you can check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/MMP, which has hundreds of bonus episodes available.
Aside from the bonus episodes from the after show in the Bamboo Lounge, you also get our MM Plays game stuff like Phil's nifty setting for the Children of the Shroud, or characters, the mods we're using, Phil's Session 0 worksheet, the behind-the-screen audio episodes, my game development notes on the Lamplighter system, which will power the Streets of Avalon role-playing game, and most importantly, access to our Slack channel, which is the best way to talk to us.
That's it right there.
If the Slack channel isn't your thing, you can still email us at mmp@misdirectedmark.com or hit us up on the various social media networks in which we reside. The show and the network is at misdirectedmark, but you can find us in a whole host of other places, such as...
You can catch me at GM Gerrymander on Twitter, Dice Camp, and Facebook.
I am the Light 101 on Twitter and Chris Sneeze on Dice Camp these days.
I am at Robert M. Everson on Twitter and Dice Camp.
And I'm DNA Phil at both Twitter and Dice Camp.
Lastly, we have a bunch of other shows on Misdirected Mark Productions. The roster includes Pandas Talking Games, The Gnomecast, Bonus Experience, and Thecco with Advantage. And if that still isn't enough, good God, come on now. We have friends who create content. There's the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, the Knights of the Night with their excellent AP, Mastering Dungeons, which is all about D&D, and How to RPG, hosted by Sean P. Kelly of Gaming and BS. You can catch him live on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, and Chris is quite often in the chat room.
I am pretty much there all the time.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out! Simulated punch because I don't want to move the mic out of alignment.
Thud.